Today on the breakdown, we don't mince words. We don't mince meat. We don't mince anything at all except the 1.26. See, I minced that. $1.26 million difference between first and second place that Alex Foxen and Joao Vieira are playing for in the finale of this $100,000 event. I say finale like it's the last episode of a series, but really I just mean their heads up in the end of the tournament. But in that way, it is a finale. I think that's fair to say. There'll be another season, I suppose, another series of tournaments perhaps, and these are sort of the main characters, the actors, if you will, and sometimes there's even a show which several episodes of and it's edited. I mean, I think you can make a case is what I'm saying. Anyway, here we are. Big names, big money. There's going to be some tough decisions. I'm not going to lie, people. We're going to break it all down right now on The Breakdown with Grant Dennison and Jonathan Levy.
There are some breakdowns where the players are not particularly impressive. You know, they're like fine players or whatever, but it's like maybe we have some insight that they don't have. And there are some breakdowns where it's like these guys are worlds apart from us, and we're just going to do our best to grasp at air and figure out what they're thinking. And that's the case in this one. With Joao Vieira, who is not as famous as Alex Foxen, but we've been singing the praises of for many years as a great tournament player, and Alex Foxen.
Yeah, he's got very strong online results, strong live results. I think he's extremely well respected within the high stakes community. And here he is. Now, to see how much you really know about Joao Vieira, it's time to play a little game that we like to call Where is Joao Vieira from?
That would be Portugal?
That's right. Nice job. And that wasn't, of course, the real game. The real game is, of course, the Hendon game, which is what is Joao Vieira's Hendon? Now, we already know, it's not spoiling too much about, I'm not going to say how he does in this event, but there's millions of dollars in playing this event, and that will be included in the Hendon because it's first or second anyway. So
I know that after this event, there is a pittance to Foxen's Hendon, not a pittance, but it's like not Foxen has 42 million. I know that, which is a
what
big
does Joao
Hendon.
Vieira have?
Joao Vieira, I could just be way off on this, but the number that's calling to me is 19 million. It's calling to me.
You know, it's interesting because you're so good at this game so often. This is not awful, but it's not close either. The answer is 12.2 million. So I don't think we can say that was well done.
It's not in the same realm.
It's
not in the same realm. And something I did mention to Jonathan when we were talking about doing this hand was you don't usually see Joao Vieira at these stakes. We've seen impressive hands from him at lower stakes, so that's probably a big factor in this Hendon thing. Jonathan theorized that maybe Joao satellited in or something. Because we don't, or maybe he's just good enough that it's time to move up to 100Ks. You know, he is that good.
Yep.
You know,
could be taking a shot, kind of a thing, or just
the shot worked out pretty well because he's heads up in 100K, and the least amount of money he can make is what 2.4 million or something like that.
Something like that.
2.6 million is the least amount of money he can make here.
Yeah, and I will tell you that this event, even second place, is the most money he will have ever. It's going to be the number one thing in his hand, whether he finishes first or second. So what a great job to play this event by Joao Vieira.
Yeah, good for him.
You did it, buddy. Congratulations.
He deserves it. He's very good at poker.
He is.
A little bit less on the poker side of things, although still about poker. Something that struck me in your opening, the finale thing. It kind of brought me back to like the poker boom, and when media companies were like seeing poker for the first time and like, okay, we have to put this in front of people. People want to see this. And they didn't know how to frame it. So they were either trying to frame it as like a sport or like a show or a movie or something. And like, you know, they would try to be really cinematic with it. You know, Mike Sexton being maybe the ultimate example where he tried to like create little stories about the players at the tables and stuff.
Yeah.
And then ESPN being very much like, this is the same thing as tennis, right? This is as much of an athletic competition as tennis. We agree on this, don't we? Everybody?
I mean, I remember being at a poker table long after the World Series had concluded, but ESPN was back in the day doing an episode a week or 2 episodes a week, I think. But it took like, 7 weeks to do or something like that. They did a bunch of episodes for the main event. And people at the poker table were talking as if it hadn't happened yet. Like, oh, I just watched the divisional playoffs and now the Super Bowl's next week. So who do you think is going to win when they finally play? And I remember sitting at the table being like, I mean, we already know who won, guys. But I won't say anything. I won't want to spoil it for anybody.
Yeah.
But like they literally didn't think it had been played yet, which was interesting to me because they're so used to. I mean, ESPN did sort of portray it not as a documentary, but like a live event, even though it happened a long time before. So,
yeah,
there you have it.
Yeah, and I think there was something really fun about that era, and it was a little bit off, right? It didn't show quite enough about the actual poker, but I preferred it to what we have now, which is like 13-hour live streams with hyper-technical analysis from really good pros, which is cool, but it's not nearly as entertaining in my opinion. I think there's room for both.
Don't you get both? Don't you get both though? Doesn't ESPN also do a 1 hour
Does it? Still?
thing? I think they do. I'm pretty sure it's hard to say. I think so. I think they do some kind of World Series.
It's not the same. It's not the same as it was. And like the EPT great days of like 2010 to 2015 or whatever, where they were doing the 1 hour episodes every week on Channel 4 in England, and then it would go on YouTube. Like that's not happening anymore. Where they do like the 8 episodes for an EPT, where they have like the whole tournament. Like that was awesome too. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was really fun. I
feel like that was really kind of the perfect blend of like actual poker understanding and it being a serialized cinematic experience. I feel like that was like they hit the middle there pretty well.
And that was pretty cool. I mean, I think it's probably better today though. I mean, there's so many options now. You get like they're doing like the big game type stuff on PokerStars does now, and there's a million poker vlogs and people like playing and talking about their thought process as you watch them play hands. Plus, you also get these full-on final tables with every hand if you want to watch it, and you still will also sometimes get edited down, not edited in the way you're talking about totally produced, but edited down like 45 minutes of just like the final table action.
But calling that the same thing is wrong. Like that's not the same thing as when they intentionally are making it like an experience for the viewer to watch those 45 minutes, which they tell a story within the 45 minutes instead of these are clips from the final table. It's a different thing.
That's true. Right.
And I think there's room for all of this. I think there's definitely room for all the stuff that modern poker has and and I think it's good to have. I just lament the loss of that cinematic experience a little bit. I think it was there was something that I found overall more entertaining. Like I like that we have these options, but like for like a snippet of entertainment, I found that more entertaining as a viewer. That was my personal preference.
As I got to know poker more and more, the less I liked those things because they often didn't have enough information. I mean, they got better at it for sure as they went. And the EPT is a good example of having a lot of that information, in fairness to you. But like I'm thinking more about World Series main event coverage. Where for many, many years, like we didn't even know what the bet size was, let alone how much was in the pot or how much people had in their stack.
But before they stopped the cinematic World Series one, where it was like pre-planned for the viewers experience, they had gotten better at that. It did take them a while, but they like. I'm saying there is a world where that still exists, but it doesn't right now. Because there wasn't a viewership for it though, because people either wanted something more or less. They didn't want that in between thing that you want. They just wanted enough people who want. I'm not saying what the market wants. I'm saying what Grant wants.
Right.
That's what Grant wants. So do it, somebody. I'm not going to do it. Anyway, let's talk about this hand, which is obviously a major event. It's the 100K Triton back in early December of 2024. $3.8 million for first, $2.6 million for second. So huge money on the line. This is a big deal.
So much money.
Yeah, I don't believe they made any sort of deal. We actually almost did a hand featuring Alex Foxen's wife, Kristen Foxen, from a 10K where she ends up making a hero call to win the tournament, which is not a spoiler because we're never going to do the hand because once we looked it up a little bit more, her and her opponent made a straight up heads up deal for the exact same amount of money no matter how the tournament ended. So the hand had no consequences. So we were just like, oh, I guess we're not going to do that hand.
Just playing for the title only. It's weird that they let them do that. You would think they'd force them to play for some amount of money, like the EPT used to always force them to play for at least $50,000, right? Like it seems like a very basic thing to do. So there's some drama besides who's going to win the title,
right?
Who cares really?
It feels like the EPT had it right there. Where like the World Series is too strict, where they're like no deals at all. Obviously that's too strict, but the EPT is also an entertainment vehicle. They recognize that, and they're like, okay, so we have to have at least something to play for at the end. And that seems right. Especially because this is from the Poker Go Championship, which started from the entertainment perspective rather than starting from the poker tournament perspective. So they should have that sense of it, right? That would make more sense.
I don't know what you mean started from the entertainment perspective.
Poker Go was initially a media company, not a poker tournament company. And this is a tournament that they're running. And
but
whereas
Poker
the EPT...
Poker Go was specifically doing the kinds of broadcasts that you don't like, not the kinds that you do. They're the opposite of what you wanted.
I don't
really,
feel like
right?
you hear what I'm. I don't feel like you hear what I'm saying.
Okay,
which
that's
is
very
that
possible.
Of any media company to make the mistake of having nothing to play for heads up, Poker Go should be the one not to make the mistake, because they are first and foremost a media company, not first and foremost a poker tournament company that then decides to turn it into media.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's a fair point.
Yes.
I'll concede that's a fair point. Let's move on.
I appreciate that. Now,
Sure.
Let's talk about this amazing hand. There's a lot to discuss. There's a lot we're going to speculate on. But as I said at the beginning, these guys are worlds ahead of us. We're just going to do our best to figure out what the hell's going on and why they're doing it. And that's going to be fun.
That's like the best kind of a breakdown. Like when they're so good that we have to really do our best and we don't always get it right. I kind of love that shit.
Yeah.
Let's
250K, 500K are the blinds.
Okay.
Foxen has a big chip lead, almost a 3-1 chip lead with 31 million on the button. And Joao Vieira has 13.1 million. So as the effective stack, he's got 28 blinds, 26 blinds. Foxen limps the 8-3 of diamonds on the button. I guess he's playing all suited hands on the button. There is a big blind ante, so you're incentivized to play lots of hands, heads up in particular. I think this is the first interesting decision. Joao Vieira, with his 26 blinds, raises. Now, for the viewer, this was a secret hand, but we're going to tell you what it is.
Yeah.
Raises to 1.6 million with 10-8 of hearts. Do you think this is just an auto raise in this spot for Vieira? Is there why is he raising 10-8 of hearts here in particular? Would he have raised 10-7 of hearts? Would he have raised 10-8 of spades? It's just it's not like a value hand necessarily, but it's a nice hand. It's an interesting SPR.
I would guess that Foxen is limping maybe his entire range, or maybe not his entire. Is limping a huge amount of hands anyway. Since he's limping this hand, he's obviously going to limp a bunch of other hands if he's limping this hand, right? We know that. So Vieira just wants the pot to be bigger when he's got really good hands, and then he has to balance it out with something. And so you'd like to balance it out with suited connectory type hands and other hands that you look at, you're like, oh, that's pretty good. I can live with this. I don't mind playing a slightly bigger pot with this hand. So I think that's what's going on as much as anything. It gives him some board coverage. It gives him some balance. It's hard to read, the big cards that come out and we bet, we're generally going to get folds. The types of boards that are going to hit this type of hand, it's going to feel like it doesn't hit our range as much. That's kind of cool too. I don't know. I think there's a lot of good things that come from it. I don't think it would be crazy for him to check, to be clear, at all, but I think it's not unreasonable. If Foxen, let's assume, is limping something like 80% of hands, which if he's doing A3 of diamonds, it probably is somewhere close to 80%, 75, 80%. So I can understand trying to raise the pot sometimes when you have a pretty good hand.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's just maybe this hand falls into some sort of category that he predetermined also, because it feels like too much if he's doing all suited connectors and suited one gappers here. It feels a bit too much, right?
I agree.
So who knows? I don't know. It feels kind of like my 3-betting range in a deep cash game where it's I'm going to include a lot of suited connectors because it's better to, thin the field and stuff, but that's not the case heads up. It's interesting.
I'm sure Joao is, sometimes checking something like this and sometimes raising something like this just to make it so Foxen can't play him as easily, especially since this is a streamed event. And so they're going to find out each other's hands 30 minutes later or something like that anyway, right? So you have to be much more balanced against these kinds of players when they're going to know everything you're doing that pretty quickly.
So Joao makes a 1.6 over the 500K. I mean, should Foxen just fold with 8-3 of diamonds? Feels like bottom of range.
It does feel like the absolute bottom of our range here. Is Alex actually limping everything? And is he limping 8-3 off too because he's got the button and he thinks it's enough? Otherwise, I mean, my inclination, and I ain't Alex Foxen, so fair enough. My inclination would be to just fold this thing right now. It's nice to have position. Maybe it's close because of the price we're getting. Maybe if it was a 4x instead of a 3x, we'd be more inclined to fold. I'm just trying to come up with
1.1 to win 2.6.
I mean, there's what? It's 1.1
to win 2.6.
2.6 it's really 3.7, right? Because our money's going to be in there too.
Well, it depends on how you do math. You're including the call in the math.
Yeah.
You've never done that before. Interesting.
I know. I've changed that. I now include the call in the math. It's easier.
I don't like including the call in the math.
I didn't used to, but now I do it. Anyway, let's not worry about that. We can do it either way. It's fine. One is a ratio, one's a percentage. It's fine. So,
But
anyway,
isn't it actually inaccurate to include the
No.
call in the math? Because before the call, there is literally 2.6 million in the pot. So he has to put 1.1 more in to win the 2.6.
the way to think about it is how much you put in versus how much you get back.
Okay.
And then
So-
you do that would be, and then the percentage of that is your equity. And that's the
All
same
right.
thing as if you do it as a ratio, which is another way to do it. That's going to give you the same percentage ultimately. That's going to be the same as the percentage you come up with if you do it the other way. So if you say
Okay.
1.1 to 2.6, that's going to end up being the same. The equity you derive from that, it's going to be the same as the percentage of 1.1 to 3.7, right? It's going to be the same. So
I'm just going to trust you
Anywho.
on that and move on because
Right.
my brain is twisted. And
Understood.
I'm not sure I believe you. So moving on.
I know I've thought about it a lot. I'm right,
Okay.
but let's move on.
Yeah. So 3.7 million in the pot now because Foxen does call. Maybe he just does limp like literally everything and anything suited is good enough to see a flop. Could be that.
Yeah. By the way, I think one of the things that confused about what I said is I did the number. I give you the wrong numbers on that. So I said because it wasn't 1.1. It's like 1. Oh, it is 1.1. All right. Well, whatever. Sorry. Now I'm confusing myself. Let's move on.
This is a nightmare.
Come play with us on Clubs Poker. They have tournaments, they have ring games, and a 100% bonus if you use the code POKERGUYS or use our link in the description.
It is a lot of fun on Clubs. I have been playing on Clubs and I have been genuinely impressed by their software. They have great games all the time and redemptions go direct to your bank account. There's no crypto involved, none of that BS. It's a US based company. Come play with us on Clubs. We'll see you there. All right. So the flop is ace of clubs, 6 of diamonds, 3 of spades. Foxen outflops Vieira, flopping bottom pair in the backdoor flush draw with the 6 of diamonds on there. Vieira flops nothing. But
Yeah.
it's a very dry board. So it feels like a mandatory stab, right, with the 10 high.
Oh my God. On an ace high board like this? Always.
Yeah.
Always.
So he does. He bets 900K.
Yeah.
Is there anything for Foxen to do but call? I've seen Foxen do weird stuff before.
Yes, that's a great point. The reason to raise is just to knock out the equity from all the millions of hands that Joao has that could hit. That's the only reason to raise, right? Is to deny equity.
There's like a little bit of something else that could happen that would be good, which would be to fold out like pocket fours or pocket fives. I think that's possible to do.
Oh, okay. That's a fair point. I think we should just be calling kind of always. It's cheap. We're in position. I don't know that we want to bloat the pot anymore with this very mediocre hand, especially on the kind of board where, although it's dry, it's 2 to a suit, right?
No.
It's a rainbow?
Yeah.
Good God. This is what happens. I haven't seen the hand, guys, so I'm going blind here. Completely blind. I'm like Daredevil. I'm like Daredevil. He's blind.
Cool
So-
reference.
Yeah, people miss those pop culture references.
Yeah, you're talking
Anyway,
about Ben Affleck Daredevil, right?
obviously, and Jennifer Garner Electra. So,
Yeah.
so it's A63 rainbow. So then the
Great
only
movie.
thing we're really
Great movie, Electra. Electra was a great movie.
the wolf comes out of their chest in Electra in the jungle.
That's
if you remember,
good.
The forest.
That part is good. I like that.
Out of the tattoo. The tattoo turns into an actual animal. So, so anywho, so it's A63. I mean, besides a few straight draws, it doesn't feel like we're protecting against that much. I guess like the king queens of the world and all those million things. That's all we're really doing. I don't know. I feel like we're just supposed to call pretty much always here and not raise. Alex Foxen may disagree, and I'm sure he'd be right too if he does, because he's Alex Foxen and I'm not. But my inclination would be to always call here in position.
I agree. I think part of it being that Vieira is going to have just like a lot of random stuff here that hasn't connected and isn't particularly afraid of a raise with the things that do connect. Whereas if it's like a more of a polarized situation in a fuller ring, raising bottom pair against a player who's c-betting can sometimes be an effective like semi-bluff type of thing. If they have kind of like a weak ace or maybe like a pocket pair of tens or something, but that doesn't feel like this is the scenario for that.
Right. I think that's a great point. You can absolutely fold out some reasonable hands when you're much deeper, right? You can threaten all those things. You can't do that at 26 blinds.
Right. So anyway, Foxen calls. Seems like it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Pot is
we're on board.
5.5 million. As Vieira, what are we ranging Foxen on right now? Because from Foxen's perspective, Vieira's hand is pretty opaque. It's just he raised pre-flop and he raised on his flop that he's supposed to, or bet on his flop that he's supposed to bet on. What does it look like Foxen has in general? Like where do you range him?
Foxen mostly has one pair of hands, and they're mostly small, like a 6, sometimes a 3, sometimes a few of the straight draws. They can be gutters. They can be 5-7 or something like that. He mostly doesn't have aces just because a lot of his aces, I assume he would just come back over the top when we raise and just move us in. Not all of them, of course, but like a lot of his 6s he wouldn't do that with, but a lot of his aces he would. So I think we can mostly give him one pair, not top pair hands, mostly, and some straight draws. Like a pretty weak range is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of king high, if with like backdoor draws, perhaps.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Some backdoor draws, since it's relatively cheap and he's in position, and he can just scoop up value whenever we check, right? He can just bet and win a lot.
Well, so that conversation leads me to believe that it feels like Vieira has just a major range advantage here, moving to the turn. It
does feel like that. It feels like we should be betting most turns most of the time.
Well, there's also to consider our hand. Like, should it be in the bucket of bets, And I guess the question is it in the bucket of bets on the 9 of spades, which does bring a gut shot? We had no prospect for a backdoor flush draw because there was no heart on the flop, which is so sad. 3 suits, not the heart. But the 9 of spades makes it so a 7 would make a straight for Vieira. Is that enough to continue?
Yes, I think it is. I think we have such a strong range advantage here. That 9 should not hit Alex unless it makes some funky 2-pair, which once in a while he's going to have 9-6. Clearly he can have 9-3 suited, but not very often is that 9 relevant to Alex. It's an overcard to the 6 and the 3, which is not great for Alex either. I think there's just so many reasons for us to bet. Mostly that Alex is very weak here most of the time.
Right, and Vieira would go with any ace like this, right? He would bet any ace on the turn for value, you would think.
Absolutely. I think he's trying to, mostly go 3 streets with any kind of reasonable ace here, right?
Yeah. So, I agree. We should bet. He does. He goes 3.8 into 5.5, which is a pretty meaty bet considering the SPR that we're dealing with here. So this is a significant wager. All right, from Foxen's perspective, we're supposed to fold some hands, right? There's got to be some hands that we fold. This is not a diamond. It does not improve us in any way. It doesn't bring us a backdoor of any type. We just have a 3 with an 8 kicker. That's all we have here.
Yeah.
So, it feels like a fold again to me as Fox. I feel like the flop felt like a call. Now I feel like I'm in Foldville once again. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we do have hands we would fold ahead of this for sure, right? Like we'd fold all the gut shots we'd fold out before we would even consider this. Those would just be the first ones to be dumped at this size bet.
Like deuce 4 suited?
Yeah. 5-7 double gutted now?
Yeah, 5-7 is double gutted.
Okay, so that's a bad example. 4-7. If we have 4-7 suited, I guess we could fold that. So there's a few things like that, but there aren't very many. Coming back to your point, and then here we are. Is it that Foxen just doesn't believe Joao would bet a 9, and so we're really at an ace or nothing?
I don't know. I think if you're Joao and you're as good as Joao, you're betting a 9. If you have king 9
that's
here,
the question, right?
You're betting for value, I feel. I think against a guy like Foxen, it's a mistake not to.
Well, let's talk about it, though. So if we're betting for value with king 9, to get called by
a 6, or, to charge the open-enders and the double gutters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's plenty of stuff to charge.
That's fair.
It's a second spade, so, charging that too.
Yep. That's fair. I don't know if he would bet this meaty with a 9 or not, just because he'd be targeting a slightly weaker part of Alex's range. But actually, he's really targeting the same part of the range now I think about it.
He's setting up essentially a half-pot shove on the river is what it is. And I think that works with all of your value range. It doesn't have to be differentiated that much.
You're right. King 9's just definitely going to bet here. 10-9's going to bet here to try and get it in against a non-believer, / charge all the draws, / there might be a weird card that comes out that makes it hard to get value later, so you try and get value now. Also, we're short. We're we gotta win some hands over here. It's we gotta get chips somehow. So betting, you don't mind him folding, here and winning. That's a reasonable pot for you to win, and you don't mind him calling either. You're happy for him to call if you have a 9. I mean,
right.
You prefer him to call obviously if you have a 9, but it's okay if he folds because it may get hard to play out of position on certain river cards.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about Foxen's decision
here
because I guess we have to start talking about distribution. It feels like of the hands that got here, we can chuck the deuce 4 and the 4-7. Those are easy to chuck. We can chuck the king highs that don't improve, that don't have spades, essentially. You know, like I imagine we still want to fold like king jack, hands like that don't have spades, right?
I think we have to, don't we?
Okay. And then this feels like next up, right? A 3 with no kicker.
Yeah. My inclination without, looking at a solver or having any sense of it would absolutely be to dump this hand. I'd call the flop and I'd fold the turn for sure. Now, what if we knew that Joao is basically, okay, we're Alex Foxen. We know Joao is kind of always betting flop and turn on this board, right? We know that.
Yeah. Well,
So
maybe
when we
not.
call
I mean,
the
he
flop-
did improve equity. If he had something like, I don't know, if he had Jack 10 of hearts instead of 10-8 of hearts, would he still bet where he doesn't actually improve any
I
equity?
don't know. Maybe. I mean, you could argue as Joao that like I still have like a 10 and a jack as outs, like almost always. Like not always, but a good percentage of the time I can hit one of my 2 quote overcards to not to the ace, but to everything else and probably be good.
Okay.
So in
then
some
what
ways
are
it's a semi bluff.
So
we
like
could talk ourselves into.
queen deuce of hearts, maybe
There you
we don't
go.
bet that hand.
Yeah, stuff like that. I think it's There's not. I think we're betting a lot. Like I said, I think we should be betting most turns most of the time. I said before we knew what the turn card was, right?
Yeah.
As Joao, and so I think Alex knows that too. And so now we're sitting here like, well, if he's gonna basically go bet before we even get to any real big decisions, before he really even starts to think about what he's gonna do, then we should call a lot more with our made hands twice. We should be stickier. We should be stickier for sure.
Right, but of course it ultimately comes down to where he sits in his distribution and if it fits into the call range or not. Right?
That would be part of it for sure. I mean, that's not the only thing for sure, but that's definitely got to be a chunk of it.
Yeah.
This can't be very high in his distribution, right?
It's not that low either, though. Like we talked about, like he's got 4 combos of deuce 4 at least, 4 combos of 4-7 at least. It depends on if he's playing the unsuited ones and calling the pre-flop raise with them, but let's assume that he's at least playing the suited ones.
Yeah.
Then he's got like a bunch of random king highs probably that didn't improve on this, which is a significant amount of combos, I imagine. He's probably not limping any king and folding pre-flop on the button.
I think we should assume also there's just a bunch of like 2 backdoor type hands that he's calling with all his 2 backdoor hands. So if he has if he had Jack 10 suited, actually that would be a good one where he would call the flop, right? And then he
or like
would not have
4,
anything going on right now.
Like queen 4 of clubs would be a 2 backdoor hand on the flop, something like that.
Right. And then it's like, okay, now I fold. So he's going to fold. So I think he probably is going to call fold all of those. That's fair. Okay, and then if we have a few aces but not that many, that 9 does hit us a little bit. That does mean if we've got our 2 backdoor hands, by the way.
Yes, we have some 9s, and we obviously have a big chunk of 6s that we play this way.
Yep. We don't really have any pocket pairs at all, I don't think.
I don't think so. We're probably re-raising. If we have a limping strategy pre-flop, we're probably just trying to get that in pre-flop.
I think all the way down to deuces is just we're moving in, right?
Yeah.
So we never have that. So it's a bunch of 6s, a few 9s, a few aces. We still have a few aces in our range for sure. We're not moving with all of them. We're moving with some of them.
We're gonna have like a very small piece of sets, right? Like of aces specifically.
Oh, exactly, aces. Okay.
Yeah.
We might have that. You're right. But not too many, obviously.
Yeah.
But it may a very few. Okay. And now we're down to the 3s, and we have some 3s. And this 3, I don't know if this 3, is there better 3s than this besides ones that are, is it the 3 of spades on the?
It is.
Is it okay, so we can't have 3s in a flush draw anyway.
No.
So I don't know if any 3 is better than any other 3 here, really.
I think I'm kind of convinced of a call if we have all of these 2 backdoor hands on the flop and all of these king high hands on the flop. I think a call fits if Vieira is going to be betting the turn with a lot of his range.
Like most of the time, yeah. So we just have to have like a very strong defense frequency because he's betting so much, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So I think I actually get it now. I think it's a call.
Okay.
That's what Foxen does.
But it's close. By the way, it's still pretty close and still like, geez, this could this could look really bad. Okay,
Yeah,
let's,
of course.
Let's move on.
I didn't have to play 8-3 of diamonds, but
Right,
here we are.
Exactly. I could have folded this without even limping if I wanted to. Yeah.
Yeah. Pot is 13.1 million. Vieira has 7.275 million remaining.
Yeah.
Hey, guess what I didn't write down? It would be the river card, but that's the king of diamonds.
Okay. Great.
So
King of Diamonds comes. Cool.
I mean, it has some bearing on the hand. Sometimes Vieira is going to have hit a king, having bet
let's
the.
see. I mean, let's see what he does. Right. That's going to give us a lot more information.
He almost goes all in. He bet 7 million of his 7.275.
So this is question number one. Is Joao definitely going all in if he hits his king? If he's got king queen and went bet. Let's just say he did that.
My answer is yes. I think he is. My question is if he's going to go bet with king queen, or he's going to go to check call mode on the turn. Like if he thinks he has enough showdown value with that to go to check call mode on the turn. Or
Right.
and that applies to all king highs. I'm not really sure. Maybe he bets anyway just because it's a lot easier. He's out of position. He can win the hand right now. That makes sense too.
I don't know that he's going to do that much check calling really with king high. He's like when he's kind of short as it is, he's going to out of position call and then just call again. I hope it goes check on the river and he's good, which will happen a little, but not that often. Otherwise, we have to hero with king high most of the time. That doesn't sound like a great way to end your tournament when we just don't have to do that.
Before we talk about Foxen's decision, let's talk about Vieira's a little bit.
Okay.
Like, is this simply a run out that is so rage advantageous for us that we have to do this with all of our bluffs that we have remaining? We have no give ups.
I think we probably should be moving in with everything here. That is not an actual hand of any kind. Yeah, no showdown, any zero showdown value. I think we should be moving in with. I do. Yeah, this is an incredible card for that. Maybe we have king queen because, like you said, I don't think we're checking the king highs on the turn. So that means we're betting them, which means maybe we can have that and move in. Great. Obviously, we have lots of value. We can have king nine. We were talking about how we bet king nine on the turn. Now we can be betting that. We obviously have an ace plus, any kind of ace or better than ace. We can still have also. We can have other weird, funky two pairs like 9-6 suited potentially. King six suited potentially we can have. I think we're probably betting that on the turn. I'm not 100% sure if we're betting that on the turn. We might go into check call mode with king six specifically on the turn. It's close.
Yeah. I think we're probably betting that on the turn and just never folding would be my guess.
Maybe.
Yeah, so I think ultimately, he's going 3 streets with all of his random bluffs, and I think it makes sense.
It looks super strong, right? He's got half pot back, and he moves in after. I mean, it looks like Alex is going to call a lot. We're giving Alex a great price to call. Alex can afford to call, and we still move in on the board that's way better for us. I mean, it looks really strong, which is kind of great.
I think we've kind of established that Joao's bluff range is expansive, but his value range is also expansive.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's probably still moving in with queen nine. I think that's a question, but I think he might be going with queen nine here.
He might check queen nine to bluff catch instead, give the straight draws a chance to fire.
Maybe if he needs a couple bluff catches. Yeah.
Yeah, and also give a 3 a chance to lose its mind. Kind of a thing, like if it's like, God, now that he hits the king and now he checks, maybe Alex is never going to try and get him off a king actually in a million years. So, but to get the straight draws a chance, you probably want to have a few check calls there, and a 9 is a really good one to do that.
So any 9 maybe is the check call bucket, and he's probably not going for value with a 6 at this point on the river, would be my guess either.
It would seem surprising to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another check call.
So his value is every ace in the deck, because he's probably playing them all this way. Mm-hmm. Every 2 pair in the deck that he plays this way, which obviously is going to have some 2 pairs that aren't aces up based on having 10-8 of hearts. Mm-hmm. Every king that he plays this way, which I think is a lot of them. He's probably betting the turn with all of his king highs for the reasons that we discussed earlier. Yeah. So that's like a lot of combos of value. But he also has every hand like 10-8 of hearts that gets here and bluffs. I just don't know how to weight it. I'm not really sure exactly how to weight it, but obviously it once again comes down to a distribution question for Foxen. Like, what we folded on the turn was like our 2 backdoor type hands, like the queen 4 of clubs, right? Those are the types of hands we folded on the turn. We didn't fold any pairs on the turn, we decided. We folded all of our gut shots, and we folded our 2 backdoors. We did not fold our king highs necessarily. No, we did. We folded our king highs except for the king X of spades. We were never folding the king X of spades, right? So
Right.
So we have king X of spades in our range. That's an easy call. We have some aces, very few aces. Those are easy calls. Sometimes we make 2 pair on this hand.
Yep.
Obviously, that's an easy call. Any other easy calls that we have before we start talking about the more marginal stuff?
I mean, even a 9 is like, I wouldn't call that an easy call at this point. If we had 9-10 suited and we called once on the flop for our 2 back doors and we turned to 9, we're like, okay, obviously we call. Yeah. And now we're like, I mean, he's supposed to have me. All his value definitely beats me, right? Like, is he moving with the 6? No. Does he have a worse 9 that he's moving in with? I mean, 9-8 suited exactly? I mean, there's not much.
But the upshot of what you're saying is that we do have 9s in our range to be higher in our distribution than our current hand, at the very least.
Absolutely.
We're not missing any distribution reasons other than hand rank, are we? Like blocker type stuff. I don't think we are.
I think actually with our actual hand, 3-8 is not a good hand to have. Like we block 7-8, which is an open ender on the turn. So he might have c-bet and then turn open ended and continued. We block that. We also block some of the gutters, a bunch of the gutters. Yeah.
5-8, 10-8. Yeah.
Like that's not really good to have the 8 in our hand. We don't have spades. That's great. That's great not to have spades.
Yes.
But we don't like having the 8. So that's another reason to throw our hand away is there's less natural bluffs anyway. Now maybe we're just saying like Joao isn't going to care about that. Joao may just fire away on this board because the range advantage is so strong. Maybe he doesn't need to have any equity on the turn, you know? Does that mean we just have to close our eyes and call? I mean,
but I mean, if we're at the bottom of our calling distribution on the turn, we're supposed to then fold that on the river, right? When things don't change significantly.
And the other card we have in our hand is not a card we love. I mean, the 8 of spades would be worse, but not a card we love at all. Here having the 8, we'd really prefer not to have it. We'd much. And
it's not like it's not like a good brick either. It's not a deuce, right? A king can sometimes make it so we went from winning to losing.
I mean, it wouldn't occur to me to call here. I don't think I could. I think that king comes and he moves, and I'm like, this is the part of the range that I fold. Like, I've got to have some calls on the turn that I fold on the river. Okay, I guess there's some draws that would be that, but there aren't that many anymore. And I might have moved in with those on the turn sometimes anyway because it was a kind of a meaty bet.
Like the worst hand to have is like the queen 10 of spades, right? Obviously, we fold that.
Yes, that's real bad. I mean, we can we have 4-5, or are we just going to raise that ourselves, like rather than call a bunch?
I feel like we're going to raise at some point with 5 high instead of just like hope to improve.
I mean, it's so cheap on the flop, and then the turn is big, and he's only got half a pot left. And we might feel like, do we really have fold equity? The answer is, well, we have fold equity against all the things that are going to bluff us out. So there's value in getting rid of those hands, or him catching some weird card. Even, right. And then if he calls, we're still okay. I think you're right. I think we're moving in with all the straight draws on the turn anyway. Hey, if we're moving with all the straight draws, we don't really have straight draws to dump on the river.
No,
either.
Of course not.
Right. So, geez, this is tough. I don't see how we can call.
It feels like
how
a fold
do we call
me.
here?
He does.
So why does Alex Foxen call? So why does he call? Because he does call. So there's a few possible answers, right? One of the most obvious one is the thing that we can always say, which is he picked up a live read of some sort. Now, and the truth is, he is a live reads kind of a guy. I know this about him. So he really might have, and that may be the whole time we thought this guy's very uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. You know, he wants me to fold. So even though this hand sucks. Yeah.
As you pointed out, this is the biggest spot of Joao Vieira's tournament life.
That's right.
Ever.
That's live. Probably ever.
So he's most likely to be giving off reads now, like in his entire career. So maybe, and Foxen is used to these spots. He's calm as a cucumber. Right?
That's right. And he's used to watching people.
But,
he's used to, well, good enough. Well, cucumbers can be calm. Come on.
Yeah.
He's used to watching people who are very comfortable in these spots and used to watching people who are very uncomfortable in these spots, right? He's really seen it all. And he's seen the good pros who are in this kind of a tournament for the first time in this big spot of their lives. He's seen everything. So it wouldn't take much for him to change flip the switch from fold to call. You know, if he's like, look at what he's doing with his hand there. Look at that finger. Look at the way he put that bet out. I don't think he wants me to call, man. I don't think so. And I was going to fold, But now I think I should be folding everything that isn't a made hand, and I think I should be calling everything that is. Maybe I should even call with queen high sometimes the way he looks. I don't know, but a 3 is basically the same as queen high anyway, right?
Yeah,
so
I mean,
maybe
it's
queen
possible.
jack. Maybe queen jack is bluffing, and we lose that way.
The issue with trying to get reads off of people who are in a really big spot for them financially is that they might just be nervous no matter what.
Right. But having said that, Alex has been at the table with this guy for a while.
Yeah.
Right. The
True.
final table at least, and he's probably played a bunch of other tournaments with him too. But in this final table with all these big money jumps and stuff like that, and probably seen a big spot earlier already with him, and seen.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's been paying attention to everything, and feels like, okay, if indeed this is what's going on, oh, he looks a little different now, just a little different. That's all it takes. He took an extra quarter of a second there before he bet. Normally, he always takes exactly 5 seconds. This time it was 5 1/4. And based on the little bit that I know about him, that feels weak.
Yeah.
I'm making this up. This is the easiest thing to fall back into because we don't know what else to say about why.
Right, because it doesn't feel like a call unless there's something like that going on.
Yeah. Right. I agree. This feels like the kind of hand we could fold even if Joao was like playing the hand blind. Almost.
Yeah.
Like we could be like, I mean, I just lose too often, don't I? Like,
Yeah.
Don't I just lose too much?
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he can see his hand means he's not always moving all in, though.
Right.
And so we can eliminate some of the mediocre hands that might check.
Yeah. Anyway, he makes the call, and
Wow.
Joao somehow does not spin half a blind to the win. Foxen takes it down soon thereafter.
Nice.
And
Nice.
that's just another feather in his cap.
Another $1.26 million pay jump at the very end to win 3.86 or something like that. $3.85 million. Woo! That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You are a sunlight.
Music is my sunlight, and all I need is one mic, and I can show every single MC how it's done right. Every time I come by, I'm bound to leave them tongue-tied. I'm sipping on liquor, a quitter is what I'm not. We got one life, and I took a minor break, but I'm back to claim the throne. And gonna be traveling the globe, and still have time to make it home. And you gon' meet